When my husband demanded a divorce after 15 years, I quietly agreed and signed the papers. As he celebrated with his mistress at our favorite restaurant, I approached their table with a smile. "Congratulations on your freedom," I said, sliding an envelope across the table. His smirk vanished as he read the DNA test results proving blood-red lipstick on crisp white cotton. That's what ended my marriage. Not with a scream or a bang, but with the silent horror of discovery as I stood frozen in our walk-in closet, William's dress shirt dangling from my trembling fingers. I remember the exact moment perfectly. Tuesday, 9:17 a.m. The twins were at school, Emma at her piano lesson. I had been gathering clothes for dry cleaning when I noticed William's gym bag tucked behind his rows of polished Oxford shoes. The zipper was partially open, revealing the crumpled shirt he'd supposedly worn to last night's emergency surgery. The stain wasn't medical. No surgeon wore that shade of crimson into an operating room. Before we continue with Jennifer's shocking discovery, I want to invite you to be part of our storytelling community. If tales of strength in the face of betrayal resonate with you, please hit subscribe. It's completely free and helps support more stories of women reclaiming their power. Now let's see how this seemingly perfect life begins to unravel. I stood there, heart pounding, as 15 years of marriage crystallized into this single, damning piece of evidence. Dr. William Carter, respected cardiothoracic surgeon, my husband, father of our 3 children, had another woman's lips on his clothes. The carefully constructed reality I'd been living in shattered around me like fine crystal on marble flooring. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, William's colleagues had called us the perfect Carters. Him with his steady hands that saved lives daily, me with my unwavering support and dedication to our family. Our colonial-style home in Oak Ridge Heights with its manicured lawn and white picket fence might as well have been a movie set, the American dream personified. "Jennifer makes it all possible," he'd declare at hospital fundraisers, his arm around my waist, champagne flute in hand. I couldn't do what I do without her. The other doctors' wives would smile politely, but I could see the envy in their eyes. We had it all: 3 beautiful children, financial security, and a partnership that had weathered the grueling years of medical school, residency, and William's rise to prominence. Or so I thought. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs. William started working later, claiming the hospital was understaffed. Weekend golf with colleagues became more frequent. Our conversations grew shorter, more practical, scheduling the children's activities, discussing household needs, planning social obligations that would advance his career. When William was promoted to chief of cardiothoracic surgery last spring, I organized a surprise party with all his colleagues. He smiled and thanked me publicly, but later complained I'd embarrassed him in front of the hospital board. That night he slept in the guest room, claiming exhaustion. "It's the pressure," I told my sister on the phone the next day. "The promotion comes with so much responsibility." "Men in power often change, Jen," she warned. I dismissed her concern as cynicism from her own failed marriage. The physical distance grew too. William claimed fatigue from 18-hour surgeries when he turned away from my touch. I bought new lingerie, scheduled date nights, tried everything the women's magazines suggested to keep the spark alive. He participated half-heartedly, checking his phone throughout our carefully planned evenings. "Is everything okay between us?" I asked one night after he'd barely touched his favorite meal. "Just tired, Jen. The Jenkins case is complicated." Then he'd retreat to his home office, door closed, voice a low murmur as he took calls late into the night. "I believe in trust. I believe in privacy." I never considered checking his phone or email. That was for insecure women, paranoid women. Not for Jennifer Carter, the perfect wife. Until our 15th anniversary approached. I planned to surprise William with a romantic weekend in Napa Valley, where we'd honeymooned. I needed to sync our calendars, and his phone was on the counter while he showered. One quick peek to ensure he was free that weekend. That's all I intended. The text notification appeared as I held his phone. "Dr. Rebecca Harrington. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. When are you leaving her?" My finger trembled as I opened the message thread. Hundreds of texts, dating back 8 months. Intimate photos. Plans made while I was taking Emma to her recitals or helping the twins with their science projects. Cruel jokes at my expense. "William, she's planning some big anniversary surprise. Rebecca, poor thing, still thinks there's something to celebrate." I quietly replaced the phone, made his coffee as usual, kissed him goodbye as he left for the hospital. Then I vomited until there was nothing left but bitter bile. That night, after the children were asleep, I confronted him in our bedroom. The same room where we'd conceived our children, where we'd held each other through the miscarriages before turning to IVF, where he'd comforted me through my father's death. "Are you sleeping with Rebecca Harrington?" My voice was surprisingly steady. William didn't even flinch. He removed his watch, placed it methodically on his nightstand. Yes. How long? Does it matter? He looked at me with such coldness I didn't recognize him. I want a divorce, Jennifer. The calculated cruelty of his tone shocked me more than the words. This wasn't a confession. This was an execution. Why? I whispered. I've outgrown this life. Outgrown us. He gestured around our bedroom as if it were a prison cell. I've given 15 years to this marriage, to these children. I'm 45. If I'm going to start over, it needs to be now. Start over? We built this life together, William. Everything you are. Everything I am? His laugh was bitter. I save lives daily. What do you do, Jennifer? Bake cookies for school fundraisers? Organize my sock drawer? I built this life despite the anchor of domesticity. His words struck like physical blows. I'd put my own teaching career on hold to support his medical school dreams, managed our home and children so he could focus on advancing his career, hosted countless dinner parties with hospital administrators to help him network. You'll be taken care of financially, he continued as if discussing a business transaction. The children will adjust. Children always do. That night he slept in the guest room. I lay awake, reconstructing the past 15 years, wondering if anything had been real. In the morning he left for the hospital before dawn. On the kitchen counter he'd left a business card for his lawyer. The perfect life I thought we'd built had been a mirage. The cracks had always been there. I'd just been too dedicated to our illusion to see them. What I didn't know then was that the lipstick stain and affair were just the visible fractures in a foundation that had been compromised from the beginning. William's betrayal ran deeper than I could possibly imagine, and the true nature of his deception would soon turn my world upside down in ways that would make his affair seem trivial by comparison. The day after William left his lawyer's card, I made an appointment with Patricia Winters, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Oak Ridge Heights. I needed to understand my options to prepare for the battle ahead. Patricia's first instruction was clear. Document everything, Jennifer. Especially the finances. That evening, after tucking the children into bed with reassurances that, Daddy's just busy at the hospital, I opened our home safe. Inside lay 15 years of financial records, tax returns, investment statements, property deeds. As I sorted through the papers, discrepancies began to emerge like dark threads in what I'd thought was a seamless fabric. Monthly withdrawals, $5,000, $7,500, sometimes $10,000, from our joint savings account to an entity called Riverside Holdings. No explanation, no paper trail showing where this money ultimately went. Over the past 2 years, nearly $250,000 had disappeared. I contacted our bank the next morning. The account manager was hesitant but eventually confirmed my suspicions. Riverside Holdings was a limited liability company registered solely in William's name. The money trail ended there. Is this normal in divorces? I asked Patricia during our follow-up meeting, sliding the bank statements across her mahogany desk. Heidi assets. Unfortunately, yes. She examined the documents through narrow reading glasses. But this pattern suggests something more calculated. Something long-term. It was during this conversation that Patricia mentioned Dr. Nathan Brooks. The name came up in another case of mine, she explained. Former colleague of your husband. Left Ashford Medical Center 3 years ago under interesting circumstances. Might be worth a conversation. I remembered Dr. Brooks vaguely, quiet, dedicated, always slightly uncomfortable at hospital functions. He'd simply vanished from the medical community without explanation. William had dismissed my questions with professional differences. Nothing interesting. It took 5 calls to track down his current practice. A modest family clinic 40 miles outside the city. His receptionist was protective, but when I mentioned William's name she immediately transferred me. Mrs. Carter. His voice carried a weight that made my stomach tighten. I've been expecting your call for years. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Dr. Brooks had aged considerably since I'd last seen him. Deep lines around his eyes, prematurely gray hair. He ordered black coffee and studied me with a clinical gaze. I knew this day would come, he said quietly. I just didn't know which of us would break first, me with my conscience, or William with his arrogance. What he revealed over the next hour shattered what remained of my world. The fertility clinic at Ashford had a problem, he explained, voice barely above a whisper. Several couples reported failed IVF procedures despite optimal conditions. I noticed inconsistencies in the lab reports, slight differences in documentation versus actual procedures. My hands trembled around my untouched latte. We had gone through 3 rounds of IVF to conceive the twins, another 2 for Emma. Each failure had been devastating, each success miraculous. I began investigating quietly. The clinic director, Dr. Mercer, was falsifying results, substituting specimens, manipulating success rates to maintain the clinic's reputation and funding. When I confronted him, he admitted William was aware. More than aware, complicit. "That's impossible," I whispered. "William wanted children. We both did." Dr. Brooks slid a thumb drive across the table. Hospital records. Lab reports. William's signature authorizing procedural modifications. His euphemism for tampering with specimens. "Including yours." "Why?" My voice cracked. Why would he do this? Originally, career advancement. Mercer was on the board that later promoted William to chief. "But with your tastes." He hesitated. "William has a hereditary heart condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Mild in his case, but with a 50% chance of passing it to his children. A surgeon with his ambition couldn't risk children with a condition that might reflect poorly on his professional judgment." The implications crashed over me like a tidal wave. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. "So during our IVF treatments, he ensured his sperm was never actually used. The clinic used anonymous donors instead. William knew exactly what he was doing." I left the meeting with a thumb drive burning a hole in my purse and a recommendation for a discreet genetic testing service. That night, after the children were asleep, I collected DNA samples. Hair from their brushes, saliva from their toothbrushes. I included one of William's combs from the master bathroom he no longer used. The 2-week wait for results was excruciating. William had accelerated the divorce proceedings, demanding custody evaluations, claiming my emotional instability made me an unfit mother. His lawyer sent intimidating letters questioning my ability to financially support the children, suggesting my contribution to the family had been minimal. They offered a settlement that would leave me with barely enough to survive. A calculated move to force me into submission. Meanwhile, I maintained appearances, helped the twins with their science projects, attended Emma's recital, smiled at school drop-offs, nodded politely when other mothers asked about William's absence. "Hospital schedule," I'd say. "You know how it is." At night, I researched medical ethics violations and fertility fraud. The cases I found were devastating. Doctors using their own sperm instead of donors, clinics mixing up embryos, families discovering biological truths decades later. But nowhere did I find a case like ours. A husband deliberately ensuring his children weren't biologically his, creating a family on false pretenses while maintaining the fiction of genetic connection. The testing company called on a Tuesday morning. The woman's voice was professional, detached. "We have your results, Mrs. Carter. Would you like me to email them, or would you prefer to discuss them over the phone?" "Email," I whispered, knowing I needed to see the evidence with my own eyes. The clinical language of the report couldn't soften the blow. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested children. The probability of paternity is 0%. I printed 3 copies. One for my lawyer. One for the safety deposit box I'd opened in my name only. And one that I slipped into a cream-colored envelope with the Ashford Medical Center logo, taken from William's home office during those weeks of pretending nothing had changed. My hands didn't shake anymore. The devastation had crystallized into something harder, colder. This wasn't just about an affair or hidden assets. This was about a fundamental betrayal that had begun before our children were even conceived. William had deprived me of choice. He had constructed an elaborate lie that shaped 15 years of my life, my identity as a mother, our children's very existence. All while positioning himself as the generous provider, the dedicated father, the brilliant surgeon saving lives. The truth changed everything. And I now possessed the power to make sure it changed everything for him too. With the DNA test results in hand, my grief transformed into something sharper, more focused. William had constructed a false reality for 15 years, and now I would dismantle it, methodically, completely. I began by reaching out to other families who'd undergone fertility treatments at Ashford during William's oversight. Dr. Brooks provided a list of 27 couples who might have been affected. Most refused to speak with me, unwilling to question the origins of their precious children. 5 agreed to meet. The Millers had twins who looked nothing like them. The Patels had a daughter with unexpected medical issues. The Johnsons, Garcias, and Wilsons each had stories of miraculous conceptions after multiple failed attempts. Once Dr. Mercer took personal interest in their cases. "We were just so grateful," Sarah Wilson told me, tears streaming down her face. "We never questioned the how." My search led me to Diane Fletcher, a former nurse who'd worked at the fertility clinic for 12 years. We met at her small apartment outside the city, where she lived surrounded by filing cabinets. I kept records of everything, she explained, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled out a leather-bound journal. Patient names, procedural modifications, signatures authorizing changes. They thought I destroyed it all when I left. Why didn't you report them? I asked. Diane's smile was bitter. I did. Hospital administration, medical ethics board, even the police. Every time the investigation disappeared. Your husband has powerful friends, Mrs. Carter. She showed me entries dating back 8 years. Meticulous documentation of specimen substitutions, falsified consent forms, procedural irregularities. William's signature appeared repeatedly, authorizing protocol adjustments in cases with genetic concerns. And my case? I asked quietly. Diane turned to a page marked with my name and dates matching our IVF procedures. Special instruction from Dr. Carter himself. Specimen replacement authorized due to quality concerns. No donor identification recorded. I photographed every page, every signature, every damning note. As I was leaving, Diane pressed a business card into my hand. Medical Ethics Investigation Unit. Ask for Agent Dawson. Tell him I sent you. Michael Dawson worked for a joint task force investigating healthcare fraud. He'd been building a case against Ashford for 18 months but couldn't penetrate the wall of silence surrounding the fertility clinic. Your evidence could be the key, he explained during our first meeting. But we need more financial records showing kickbacks, recorded admissions of guilt, testimony from someone currently inside. I committed myself to gathering what he needed while maintaining the facade of a woman reluctantly accepting divorce. I smiled sadly at William during mediation sessions, agreed to temporary custody arrangements, pretended to consider his insulting financial settlement. You're being surprisingly reasonable, Jennifer, William remarked after one particularly tense meeting with our lawyers. The children come first, I replied softly. I just want what's best for everyone. His confidence grew with each concession I appeared to make. He brought Rebecca to school functions, introduced her to our friends, even had her stay overnight when the children visited his new downtown apartment. All while I quietly recorded conversations, photographed documents, and built my case. My investigation took an unexpected turn when I hired a private investigator to look into Rebecca's background. The report revealed something stunning. She wasn't just William's colleague and lover. She was Madeline Harrington's daughter. Madeline Harrington had been William's patient 5 years ago. A routine valve replacement that ended in tragedy when William allegedly made an error during the procedure. The hospital investigation cleared him of wrongdoing, concluding Madeline had failed to disclose a medication that complicated her surgery. The truth, buried in records Agent Dawson uncovered, was that William had been operating on minimal sleep after a weekend with Rebecca in Chicago. His error was covered up, the records falsified, the family paid off with Ashford funds. Madeline's husband died a year later from stress-induced heart failure, leaving Rebecca alone. She'd changed her last name, erased connections to her past, and methodically worked her way into William's life, first as a colleague, then as his mistress. Her revenge had been years in the making, just like mine was now. I debated confronting her, perhaps even suggesting we work together, but decided against it. Rebecca's motivations were emotional, volatile. Mine needed to be calculated, precise. Over the next month, I gathered testimonies from former clinic employees, documented the money trail from Ashford to Riverside Holdings to offshore accounts, and secured sworn statements from patients whose treatments had been compromised. Agent Dawson built a legal case while I constructed something more personal. The complete dismantling of William Carter's carefully crafted image. I recorded William during one of our co-parenting discussions, subtly steering the conversation toward the fertility treatments. The twins have your eyes, I mentioned casually. Good genes, he replied, distracted by his phone. Do you ever wonder if they inherited your heart condition? His head snapped up. What? Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Dr. Brooks mentioned it. William's face darkened. Brooks should keep his mouth shut about things that don't concern him. Don't our children's health concerns concern him? Concern me. There's nothing to worry about, he dismissed. I had them tested years ago. They're fine. How could you test them without telling me? I'm their father and a doctor. I made a medical decision. The recording captured every word. His acknowledgement of the condition, his admission of testing our children without my knowledge, his continued pretense of biological connection. It was the final piece Agent Dawson needed. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The annual Ashford Medical Center Gala was approaching, the most prestigious event on the hospital's calendar. William had been selected to receive the Physician of the Year award for his groundbreaking contributions to cardiothoracic surgery and unwavering ethical standards. The invitation arrived at our house, still addressed to both of us despite our pending divorce. William texted that he'd be taking Rebecca as his date, but I was welcome to attend, if it wouldn't be too awkward. I replied with a perfect blend of wounded dignity and gracious acceptance. I wouldn't miss it. You deserve this recognition. What William didn't know was that I had already met with the hospital board chairman, sharing select pieces of evidence. A special session had been scheduled immediately preceding the gala. A session where Agent Dawson would present the full case against William, Dr. Mercer, and the fertility clinic. As I prepared my gala dress, a sleek black gown that Rebecca had once mocked as "suburban mom tries sophistication," in a text to William, I received notification that William and Rebecca would be celebrating at Vincenzo's after the award ceremony. Our special restaurant where he'd proposed 15 years ago. It was the perfect finishing touch to my carefully orchestrated revelation. The envelope with the DNA results was ready. The authorities were prepared. Every detail had been considered. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of calm certainty. William had spent 15 years constructing a lie. Tomorrow night the truth would finally be told. The night of the Ashford Gala arrived with perfect dramatic timing. Thunderstorms threatening but holding off, the sky dark with potential. I entered the hotel ballroom alone, wearing the black dress William had always said made me look trying too hard. My hair was swept up, diamond earrings, a gift from a husband who no longer existed, catching the light as I moved through the crowd of medical elite. I spotted William immediately, holding court near the stage, arm possessively around Rebecca's waist. She wore crimson, the same shade as the lipstick that had started this cascade of revelations. Hospital board members clustered around them, laughing at his jokes, admiring his perfect companion. The picture of success. The secret board meeting had concluded just 30 minutes earlier. I'd watched from a side room as Agent Dawson presented the evidence. Financial records, patient testimonies, Diane Fletcher's detailed documentation. The board members' expressions transformed from skepticism to shock to grim resolution. The hospital's legal counsel had immediately contacted the district attorney's office. William, of course, knew none of this as he accepted congratulations for his upcoming award. He didn't know that police officers were positioned at every exit, waiting for the signal from Agent Dawson. Didn't know that his perfectly constructed life was minutes from implosion. I mingled quietly, accepting condolences for my failing marriage from colleagues' wives who'd always seen me as nothing more than an accessory to William's brilliance. "So brave of you to come tonight," whispered Margaret Reynolds, the chief of surgery's wife. Her sympathy was genuine even as her eyes tracked William and Rebecca. "I wouldn't miss seeing William receive the recognition he deserves," I replied with a smile that made her visibly uncomfortable. The award ceremony proceeded as planned. The hospital board chair, Dr. Helena Winters, decided that the public revelation would be more effective than a quiet arrest. William ascended the stage to thunderous applause, accepting the crystal trophy with practiced humility. "Medicine isn't just science," he intoned into the microphone. "It's a sacred trust between doctor and patient. Ethics must guide every decision, every procedure, every moment in the operating room." I watched Rebecca during his speech, the slight tension in her shoulders, the calculated adoration in her eyes. She was playing a role just as I had for 15 years, but for very different reasons. Our gazes met briefly across the room and something passed between us. A recognition of sorts. Two women who knew the real William Carter. After the ceremony they left for Vincenzo's just as planned. I followed 20 minutes later, the cream envelope secure in my clutch. The restaurant hadn't changed. White tablecloths, soft lighting, Italian opera playing softly in the background. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Carter. How wonderful to see you again. Your husband mentioned you might join them." He had. Interesting. William was either supremely confident or setting the stage for some public humiliation. Either way, it played perfectly into my plan. They were seated at our old favorite table near the windows. William had ordered the 1982 Bordeaux we'd shared on our anniversary 5 years ago. The bottle between them cost more than a month of groceries for our children. William saw me first. His expression shifted from surprise to smugness, clearly assuming I'd come to make some desperate plea. Rebecca turned, her perfect features arranging themselves into a mask of polite concern. "Jennifer." William's voice carried that patronizing tone he'd perfected. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" I approached their table calm and collected. "You told the maitre d' I might join you. A courtesy mention. I didn't think you'd actually come." Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps I should give you two a moment." "Please stay," I replied, meeting her gaze directly. "After all, you've earned your place at this table, Rebecca. Or should I call you Rebecca Harrington?" The color drained from her face. William's brow furrowed in confusion. What are you talking about? He demanded. Rebecca knows. Don't you, Rebecca? Daughter of Madeline Harrington. The patient whose death you covered up, William. The woman whose heart valve you replaced while exhausted from your weekend with her daughter in Chicago. Ironic, isn't it? William turned to Rebecca, comprehension dawning. Is this true? Her silence was confirmation enough. I seized the momentary confusion to place the cream-colored envelope on the table. Congratulations on your freedom, I said quietly. I think you'll find this interesting reading. William's hand trembled slightly as he opened it, removing the DNA test results. I watched as his expression transformed, confusion, then disbelief, then horror as understanding dawned. This is impossible, he whispered. Is it? You ensured your sperm was never used during our IVF treatments. You falsified medical records. You lied to me for 15 years about our children's very existence. Rebecca stared at the paper, then at William. What is she talking about? Nothing, William snapped, attempting to regain control. Jennifer's fabricating stories because she can't accept our divorce. Then you won't mind explaining this to the hospital board, I replied, gesturing toward the restaurant entrance where Dr. Winters and several board members now stood with Agent Dawson. Or to the district attorney's office. Or to our children. William's face contorted with rage. You vindictive. Choose your next words carefully, Agent Dawson interrupted, approaching our table. Dr. William Carter, I'm placing you under arrest for medical fraud, financial crimes, and ethical violations under the Medical Practice Act. The restaurant fell silent as Dawson recited Miranda rights. Rebecca sat frozen, her own revenge supplanted by something far more comprehensive than she'd planned. You've been planning this, William hissed as an officer handcuffed him. All those months of playing the agreeable ex-wife. 15 years, William. You had 15 years of living your lie. I needed 3 months to expose it. As they led him away, Rebecca remained at the table, staring at her half-empty wine glass. I didn't know about the children, she said quietly. I believe you, I replied. Your mother deserved justice too. In the weeks that followed, the story exploded across medical and mainstream news. William faced multiple felony charges, his medical license suspended pending trial. The fertility clinic was shut down pending a complete investigation. Dozens of families came forward, seeking answers about their children's genetic origins. The financial repercussions were immediate and comprehensive. William's hidden assets were frozen. The court appointed a forensic accountant who traced every dollar he'd diverted. My children's financial future was secured through a trust established with recovered funds. Dr. Brooks approached me after William's preliminary hearing. Ashford is establishing an ethics review committee to oversee reproductive services when they reopen. They've asked me to lead it. Congratulations, I said sincerely. Actually, I suggested we co-chair it. Your perspective would be invaluable. The offer surprised me. For 15 years I'd been Jennifer Carter, the surgeon's supportive wife. My identity had been subsumed by William's career, his needs, his image. Now I was being asked to step forward as myself. 6 months after the gala, I sat across from Rebecca at a different restaurant. Our unlikely alliance had formed during the legal proceedings, 2 women manipulated by the same man for different reasons. Do you regret it? She asked. Exposing everything? The children will eventually learn the truth. I considered her question carefully. They'll learn that their origins aren't what we thought, but that doesn't change who they are or how much I love them. The foundation of their lives was built on lies. I chose truth, however difficult. That night, watching my children sleep in the home we kept despite William's attempts to force its sale, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction or vindication, but liberation. The perfect family illusion had shattered, but in its place was something authentic. I was no longer living someone else's carefully constructed lie. For the first time in 15 years I was authoring my own story. Messy, complicated, and absolutely mine.